IKIM Inspirasi Inforia Islami. You're listening to Men and Nature every Sunday at 6 p.m. And Alhamdulillah, with me this week, Mazlina Ismail, for another episode. We'll be sharing on the environment, a gift of God. This week, inshallah, we have another guest we would like to introduce for the first time on Men and Nature. We have Senior Fellow or Director, Center for Science and Environment, IKIM, Dr. Shaikh Mohd Saifuddeen bin Shaikh Mohd Salleh. Assalamualaikum, Doctor.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Alhamdulillah. So, as I already mentioned, the title or the topic that we'll be discussing this week, inshallah, as a start to our program today, what should we understand on the environment as a gift of God, Allah?
Right, thank you, Haja Maslina. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, and a very good afternoon. First and foremost, I'm very grateful and thankful for this opportunity to be on the air in the program Men and Nature. And as rightly said by Hajah Maslina, this is my first appearance on the program. Inshallah, I'll be coming on to the program for the next few weeks until the end of June. Inshallah. And this is the first of our series of discussion, basically focusing on the environment, a gift of God. And today, what we are going to discuss is how we as men should treat the environment. I know this is a topic that has been discussed at great length by a lot of other people, a lot of other experts in the past. But I think this is also an important topic that we should remind ourselves from time to time.
Right.
Because the reality is we are a part of the environment. Unfortunately, most of us actually treat the environment as if we are living apart from the environment. In other words, we do not regard ourselves as being part and parcel of the environment. Instead, we think of ourselves as superior to the environment, so much so that we have been causing a lot of destruction. And this is something that I think should be rectified, should be corrected. And this always begins with awareness. And awareness needs to be given on a continuous basis. So we hope that the discussion into this program will actually be one of those efforts to create awareness within ourselves. And what's more important is to translate this awareness into meaningful actions. We can talk all we want, but at the end of the day, if we don't do anything about it, then it will come to naught. So I think it's important that we have awareness, and it's also perhaps not just equally important, but more important for us to be able to act upon our awareness. And this, we should begin with ourselves, with our family, and with our community. And hopefully this can go to a larger scale, all the way to the nation. Because we know that the state of the world is in dire straits. We're talking about things like climate change. We're talking about pollution and many other destructions that have been that is taking place all around the world, not just in our country, but all around the world. And if we do not do anything about it, then what future do we have in store for our children, our grandchildren, our future generations? We must remember that the environment is a gift of God that is entrusted upon us, and we should take care of it, ensure that it is in the best of condition, so that our future generation will inherit the environment as good, if not better, than what we have today.
Right, thank you, inshallah. Now, let us take this opportunity in the month of Ramadan, where we usually do self-reflection.
Yes.
In the context of Islam, saying, there is this tangible world, as in the physical world that we see or we can touch every day. And there is also the intangible world, which is the unseen world, what we believe.
Yes.
So would you tell us, how do we reconcile the knowledge of these two worlds in the context of science?
Right. I think that is a very good question, because when we talk about the world, for Muslims, we believe that there is this tangible component that we can see, that we can touch, and we also have this intangible component. That's why we often ask ourselves whether about what is the origin of the world. Hence, from that question, we have science developing. So one interesting thing that we should remember, for Muslims, we believe that all things, everything, whether that we can see, whether we cannot see, whether it's tangible or whether it's intangible, everything is created by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Therefore, the world, the environment, everything in it is, rather are, his subjects. And the universe is, as you said, made up of both the tangible or the intangible. Tangible meaning something that we can see. Intangible is the unseen world. The tangible world is the physical world that can be detected by our senses and can be perceived by our mind. Whereas the intangible world can neither be detected by our senses nor can be perceived by our mind. And the world of spirits and the hereafter are examples of the intangible world.
Right.
Muslims believe in the hereafter. Muslims believe in angels, malaikat. Muslims believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Muslims believe in a lot of other things that cannot be detected by our senses.
But
Yet,
they are living things.
but they are there.
Yeah.
Okay, and we believe they exist.
Yes.
Yet, the existence of the intangible world can only be understood and accepted by those who have strong belief in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as the creator. I think this is one of the fundamental basis for Muslims when it comes to our iman, our belief. God has also created the physical world for the benefit of mankind.
Yes.
We are living in a physical world today. It is made up of many components, from the smallest of things, atoms and all its components, to the furthest of things, planets and all the celestial bodies that we can perceive using many instruments. The thing is, even with the things that we can perceive with our senses, only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows how many planets are there, how many moons are there, how many
Right.
galaxies are there,
Right.
how many atoms are there, what are the microorganisms that can be found on Earth, what are the organisms that can be found in the deepest parts of the oceans. We are just touching at the very surface of knowledge. There are many things that we do not know even about the tangible world.
Right.
So from this perspective, we see that as man, we study the tangible world in order for us to understand what's around us, and also at the same time to be able to control and also make use of what's there in the environment. Hence, we have science. The study of life, biology, study of stars, astronomy. So from here, we develop science in order for us to in order to help us to administer the world, in order for us to make use of what Allah has given to us in the world. So the thing here is, when it comes to the tangible world, we also need to remember that there is a sense of responsibility that we have to remind ourselves whenever we use the resources that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give. Then we have to ensure that we use these resources responsibly. We do not take things in a way that results in destruction of all the other living things in the ecosystem.
Right.
As I mentioned earlier, we are a part of the environment. If we destroy something, at the end of the day, that destruction will cause problems for us. If we do not think about this, then we will end up destroying ourselves in the future. So this is something that we have to remind ourselves. I know it's something that for some people may be tedious, but that is the harsh reality. If we do not look after the environment, then we will end up destroying ourselves.
Let us go further on, the part of environment as a physical world that we can perceive by the mind. And we know that Allah has created a unique environment on Earth to make this planet habitable. So what should we know on what makes the Earth's environment so special that it supports our life?
Well, this is something that I think not many people actually think about. If you think about it, one of the questions that many scientists ask is, does life exist throughout the universe? This is one of the things that scientists are keen to know, whether there is life on other planets. We've been to the moon. Now we have sent probes and drones to the planet Mars to see whether, for example, planet Mars is is a planet that can be is habitable for man in the future. And they are doing small scale terraforming, changing carbon dioxide into oxygen in Mars now. But again, the reality is at the moment there is only one Earth.
Yes.
And what makes Earth so special is that it can support human, animal, and plant life.
Right.
Studies and explorations into space have not been able to show that life exists elsewhere in the universe, although they found planets that are Earth-like. But there is no evidence that there actually is any life on these planets.
Subhanallah.
All life forms that are found within the Earth can be found within a thin layer of atmosphere. So I think for Muslims, this is a sign of the greatness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
Indeed, yeah.
This layer is situated between the molten heat of the Earth's interior and the cold immensities of space. And this layer is what we call the Biosphere. It stretches from the depths of the ocean to the highest point that is about 15 kilometers squared above the sea level. And in theory, the biosphere is what we call the environment. Hence, the title for today's discussion, The Environment, a Gift of God. Because within this small area, relatively small area, we can find millions of life forms, including human beings. So this is something that as Muslims we should be very, very thankful for.
Right.
This is a gift from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Out of all the planets there is that can be found out there, only the planet Earth that is habitable, that is special, that has all the right ingredients for life.
Ready to use,
ready to live. So a large variety of living things are found in the Earth's atmosphere, and we see that about 71% of the Earth is covered with water.
Right.
I think that is one important ingredient of life. And also, aside from water, we also have oxygen in abundance, which is needed for respiration. And this is a key ingredient for life on this planet. So if you look at other planets, you may find oxygen, but the composition may not be that much. In many planets, it's quite difficult to find water. So it makes these planets inhabitable. So I think when it comes to life on Earth, I think this is perhaps one in a million creation by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that allows for life to take place on this planet. And there must be a reason why Allah chooses Earth and not other planets. That is within the realm of the knowledge of Allah. But at the end of the day, as Muslims, this is something that we should be really, really thankful for.
Inshallah, that's right. And you mentioned about components of Earth.
Yes.
Or environment. Can you elaborate on that?
Yes, if you look at the environment, we can identify a number of components. One is, of course, the planet itself, the Earth, which has been around for, scientists say, for about 4.6 billion years ago. And there are many theories how the Earth is formed. I'm not going to go into that. It's quite lengthy. But the Earth is essentially is our home, the place where we live, the place that supports life. And then the other component is ourselves, mankind. We have man in all parts of the world today, in almost every continent. Even places which can be inhabitable has been made into a much pleasant place to live in. We can find people in the poles, also in deserts, in arid lands. But the thing is, the question is, how do we support the increasing population of mankind today? Whether we realize it or not, this support comes from the environment. The food supply comes from the environment. That is why we have to make sure that with the growth of population, food security, food supply has to be guaranteed. And to do this, we have to work with the environment. We must make sure that we do not destroy the environment. Another component, also important in the world or in the environment, is animals. Animals are creations of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala too. There are millions of species of animals in the world. In general, we can divide animals into two groups: wild animals and also domesticated animals. Domestic animals can be a source of food for man, and they may also provide specific services such as carrying goods and also taking people from one place to another, also to as guards or as pets. So there are many roles that animals can actually play, but each of them must be properly looked after. This is something that I think we should not ignore.
Right.
Abuse of animals is something that cannot take place. This is a big no-no for Muslims.
Right.
We have to look after animals as they are entrusted to us by Allah Subhanahu wa Taala. Aside from animals, we have plants. So plants are also a source of food for mankind. For us in Malaysia, we are very fortunate because we have a wide range of plants in our country.
True.
And I'm not sure whether any of us are actually aware, but a third of the Earth's surface is actually covered by plants. So that's quite a huge percentage.
After water.
After water.
Yeah.
And plants are important because they have a number of important roles that they play. They moderate the climate, they protect water sources, and they also provide shades for animals and man.
Right.
And green plants also carry out photosynthesis, whereby they absorb carbon dioxide and release oxygen, which is very valuable for man.
Yeah.
So I think we cannot ignore the fact that plants are an important component of the ecosystem.
Not just food, right?
Not just for food. Okay, so sometimes it saddens me to see that people just cut off forests, whereas forests actually play a very important role in our ecosystem.
Right.
So that's why we have to ensure that forests and also animals, we have to look after them. In Islam, actually, forests and animals can be designated as forest reserves to ensure that they become restricted areas, and they can also be preserved so that they can provide for the needs of man. So I think this is important. This is an important point that we have to remember. We have to ensure that we do not destroy our forests and also plants in general. We also have land as part of the environment.
Right.
Land makes up 30% of the Earth's surface. However, only a little of the land surface can support human life. So there are about 15 billion hectares of land on Earth's surface. That's a huge number.
Yeah.
However, only 1.5 billion, about 10%, of this is suitable for human settlement or agriculture. But that do not actually stop man from actually exploring the other areas that are inhospitable or inhabitable. And of course, the important components of the environment I mentioned earlier are water and air. Water makes up about 71% of the planet. Of course, only a small percentage can actually be used for our drinking purposes. But then again, water is also part of the ecosystem that is very important in ensuring that everything is in balance. Likewise, air is important, while oxygen is about 21% of the composition of air. But this composition is very important for survival of not just man but also many other living beings. So we have to ensure that we do not create pollution both on water and also in the air. I remember many years ago when we experienced things like haze, how when the quality of air drops, we begin to experience pollution, and then only we realize how valuable clean air is.
True.
Likewise, when we look at Malaysia a few years back, recently even, we have cases of river pollution,
Right.
whereas river is also an important source of water supply for our living.
True.
So these are the things that happen from time to time. I believe they happen for a reason. One of the things when these incidences occur that we should always remember is that there are lessons for us to heed. Don't just read about these incidents, but we also have to remember that we have we have a role to play in ensuring that we do not create or we do not do any pollution we do not pollute our air and our water supply.
Right. It is very important that we recognize all these components so that, we appreciate.
Yes.
And inshallah, we know as a vicegerent of Allah on this planet, we have a responsible to play to make sure that we preserve and we utilize it well. And you have explained that this earth is created perfectly by Allah. It is made ready to live comfortably by human beings. So how can we ensure that we utilize the environment responsibly without causing destruction, Dr. Shaikh?
Okay, I would like to go back to what Muslims believe in. We believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
Yeah.
And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us guidance in the form of the Quran and also the Sunnah of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And if you look at the teachings of the Quran and also the Sunnah, there are many instances, many examples given by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala through these two primary sources as to how we should look after the environment. That's why I think when it comes to looking after the environment, we actually need to look after our three-dimensional relationship. This is a phrase that I use when I talk about the environment.
Okay.
Firstly, we have to look after our relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The man and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we have a relationship that we need to look after. What this means is that we have to make sure that we really follow what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala instructs us to do and forbids us not to do.
Okay.
So if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala instructs us to look after the environment, then this is something that we should do. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala also forbids us from causing destruction, and this is also something that we have to pay attention to. So if we look after the relationship between Allah and ourselves, then I think that is a good start for us to be able to look after the environment. Secondly, we also need to look after the relationship amongst ourselves as men.
Right.
When we interact with one another, we have to make sure that we do not cause destruction on our environment. If we do business, if we want to do agriculture, if we want to do farming, we have to make sure that whenever we utilize or make use of the environment that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us, it is done with great care.
Right.
We do not do unnecessary destruction. If we chop something down, then we have to make sure that we plant them back.
Replant,
Replant them. So this is something that we have to ensure that we do, not just for the sake of ensuring our survival, but also this is a responsibility that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us. We have to look after the relationship amongst ourselves by not destroying the environment that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given. And the third relationship is, of course, the direct relationship between man and the environment. We have to look after the way we interact with the other creations of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, with plants, with animals,
Right.
also with the air, with the land, with the water. All of these, I don't think I can say this enough, all of these need to be looked after. It is our responsibility. The problem is, for many of us, we feel that this is somebody else's job. We only just look after ourselves in the closest sense of the word. If we think about it, if we look at our homes, we will make sure that our homes are clean, everything is in order. But what happens outside the gates of our houses, we do not care. Even to the extent that if something is there, if somebody throws rubbish outside the house, we say that's somebody else's job to pick the rubbish up. So I think this is a mindset that needs to be changed.
Right.
If we want a better environment, then it has to start with ourselves, and we have to make sure that this is translated, like I said at the beginning, into meaningful actions. So this is easier said than done.
Right.
We can preach all we want, but at the end of the day, if we do not want to change, then nothing good will come out of it.
Right.
So I think it's important that we instill within ourselves this desire to change ourselves, and also from there we can take actions that can help the environment.
Right. This is what we do in Man and Nature, where we would always remind each other on our role to,
Exactly.
perform, inshallah. So how would you like to leave a message to our listeners as a conclusion for the environment, a gift of God?
I think very briefly, Hajah Maslina, we have to remind ourselves that the earth and the environment has been created by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
Right.
And man has been given the responsibility of caring for the environment. In a way, the present generation has to ensure that the environment that they leave for the future generation is intact. I think that's our responsibility. The onus is on the current generation. And therefore, we must strive to return the environment to our children in the best possible form. If we were to think about our days as children, we can still, I'm sure many of us can still appreciate the fact that things were cleaner, the air was better, fresher. The rivers were cleaner. People can just basically jump into the river to swim and drink and wash. Even the beaches were a lot cleaner. So what kind of future do we want to leave our children? That is the question that we have to ask. I think I would like to leave to this program with a quote from Surah Al-An'am, verse 165, which is translated to the effect that it is He who has made you His agents, inheritors of the earth. He has raised you in ranks, some above others, that He may try you in the gifts He has given you. For the Lord is quick in punishment, yet He is indeed oft forgiving, most merciful. I think this verse is an apt reminder of the huge responsibility that we have upon ourselves as vicegerent of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this responsibility has to be translated into actions to ensure that whatever that Allah gives, including the environment, is looked after well so that the environment can be inherited by our future generations in the best possible form, inshallah.
Inshallah. May Allah forgive our wrongdoings and also guide us to the straight path, inshallah, in taking care of the earth and each other, of course. And we would like to thank you, Dr. Shaikh, for sharing with us on the environment, a gift of God, for this week. And inshallah, we'll see you again next week.
Inshallah. Thank you for having me.
Alhamdulillah. So till then, Assalamualaikum and selamat berbuka puasa.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.